Hello everyone and welcome to this pick a card reading video. In this video we have 3 piles here and we will determine which stack best matches your energy and which decade best matches your energy. I was originally going to do which aesthetic matches your energy, but the way it turned out, I think it makes more sense to just have it be your overall energy as opposed to any visual aesthetics. So yeah, that's what I decided to do. Here is stack 1A, stack 2B, stack 3C. You can pause if you'd like and if you need some more time to figure out which stack you're most drawn to. If you're not drawn to any of the stacks, that's completely fine. This just might not be the pick a card reading video for you. I have plenty of other timeless pick a card reading videos located all throughout my YouTube channel. I did want to say too that for this, I specifically am thinking about the 90s or 2000s. Nothing earlier than that, just because we only have we have less knowledge, I feel like. It's just further along ago. I don't know as much about prior times. So we are only looking at and referencing decades of the 1900s. I meant to say 1900s. Did I say 90s? The 1900s and the 2000s. As a reminder, everything I talk about and discuss in this video is for entertainment purposes only and cannot be stated as fact. Alright, let's get into it. Hello 1A and welcome to your part of the pick a card reading video. The cards pulled here are Knight of Cups upright, Queen of Cups in reverse, Four of Swords in reverse, Ten of Wands in reverse, King of Swords upright, and the Chariot in reverse. And then we have sorry, did I say Chariot in reverse? I meant to say Chariot upright, and then Angels upright, and we have in reverse 39 Vesica Pisces, Divine Feminine Birthing Fertility. I will read in the guidebook later for that. But for that deck, they do take reverses, so they have different meanings or opposite meanings than the upright. So the reason I chose the 1930s, I will explain the reasoning for that as well as any additional associations of the cards and you, but really highlight and focus on what I'm talking about in reference to this time period and then see how it could apply to your life. But I will say, before I specifically get into that, I think a lot of people who chose this stack are very creative people and are very individualistic people. But anyway, with the Knight of Cups and Queen of Cups in reverse, that is part of what lends me to this artistic nature. So the 1930s were known to be a very experimental time. It was also a very or it was a time where regionalism, I believe is what it's called. But yeah, regional art became more popular. So during the Great Depression, it started in 1929, ended in the late 1930s. During that time, people were not able to do much, so there was time for artists and creatives to explore their creativity, and if they were able to afford different materials, then they could explore. There wasn't as much to do. There was lack of jobs, and the financial market obviously wasn't, it was like pretty much non-existent. And so it was a time of experimentation, and also I think people were very good at improvising. I think a lot of you are not only creatives, but also you're creative in the way you think and come up with solutions. So if something doesn't seem right, or if you can't seem to find a solution for a problem, you're more likely to probably think outside of the box. And that's what a lot of people during the 1930s had to do. They had to think outside the box and do what they could to survive. And for the creatives, I think too that that includes using different materials that you wouldn't otherwise see. Also, there was a lot of photography that was utilized during that time, black and white photography, and it really highlighted the emotional sentiment. I think if you're not a very creative person, you're at least somebody who's very emotional, and I think you probably wear your heart on your sleeve. It feels like you get affected easily by your surroundings. And during the Great Depression in America, and I can't talk about other countries. I don't really know if other countries went through anything similar during that time, honestly. But I know that in America during the Great Depression that everybody was affected by it, even the people who were really rich. But it especially impacted the people. I mean, it just impacted everybody, but So that's something that connected everybody together, and everybody was impacted by this thing. So I think you're very easily impacted and influenced by other people's emotions and other people's moods. And I think some of you too, just because, the 1930s really was a time of the Great Depression. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of you suffer from any mental illnesses, um, such as depression. I wonder if a lot of you are easily down on your luck as well, if you feel easily, like a lot of bad things keep happening one after the other, where it's like I'm hearing a series of misfortunate events. And the Four of Swords in reverse and the Ten of Wands in reverse lends to the fact that people weren't able to do much during that time, but with the King of Swords upright, that lends to people trying to be creative with how they could make money. Um, yeah, because people were finding it hard to find work, to maintain work, and just to survive. So people didn't have, I don't think, as much responsibilities. They just had to focus on the basic necessities. So think root chakra energy, think providing food, water, and shelter for yourself and for your family. That's also something that I think could relate to a lot of you, where maybe you focus more on basic necessities. You don't seem like somebody who's very, I don't even know exactly what this word means, but I feel like saying it superfluous. You know what? I have my phone right here. Doesn't that mean you don't really care much about, like, material things? I wanna look it up. We're gonna look it up right now. Superfluous. Unnecessary, especially through being more than enough. Yeah. So you don't care about being superfluous or having any surplus. Unneeded, yes. It's like you only focus on, I never say that word. Interesting. You only focus on basic necessities. Likely so, and I wouldn't be surprised, like, it's very giving earth sign energy here, so you could have very prominent earth sign placements, but even though I know that there's, 2 cups and 2 swords, it's still very earth sign energy to me, uh, because it feels like you're just doing what you need to do day in and day out. For some of you, that means you could get pretty bored with your day-to-day life. Like with the Ten of Wands in reverse, maybe you don't have any excess or extracurricular activities that you engage in. I'm not saying that's good nor bad. Also, with the Chariot upright, that makes me think that a lot of you are more interested in slow living. Like, I'm really getting Taurus vibes here, even Capricorn vibes too. Could be Virgo vibes, but especially Taurus vibes overall, where it feels like a lot of you just focus on the day to day. You're better at not focusing too much on the future or the past. If you're not like that, then this is an indication from spirit that you're able to easily tap into that if you allow yourself to be like that. But I think you don't need to have a lot in life. I don't see you just going out into I do see a lot of you living more in rural areas, and that brings me back to regionalism because that was a big art movement that came about during the Great Depression era, the 1930s, and that focused on rural landscapes and just, like, everyday life that was painted. So that's what was depicted, just everyday rural farm life, and that was, like, if not one of the, at least, biggest art movements during that time, and I believe it did start in America as well. I think it may have only been more specific to America. I don't know if it resonated with other or if it translated to other countries at that time as well, but yeah, so focusing on like, I wouldn't be surprised, a lot of you would be really good with having a garden. If you don't have one, I really recommend having one. I think you would do good with, like, having a farm or a garden. Um, but also, yeah, not having too many responsibilities. Like, I don't see you being a very social person, and I think during the Great Depression, that probably resonated for them as well, because people just focused on their own families, I feel like. Like, you couldn't really afford to just spend your days going out and socializing too much. You know what that made me think? Wait, is that when did the prohibition end? Because the prohibition I know was in the 20s. When did it end though? Did it end in the 30s? Was the prohibition part of the 19 did it end in the 20s as well? How long was the prohibition around? I don't know why I feel like bringing that up. But it seems like Oh, maybe I bring that up because some of you could struggle with, like, addictive type behaviors. Um, like, even if people can't afford much, but if you're an alcoholic, you'll still find ways to obtain alcohol, or if it's not available to you, people still find ways and, like, go to speakeasies. So be careful about that as well. I think with hard times, some of you also could just be going through hard times or you've just had a hard life. Maybe you grew up in poverty. But it seems like with hard times, you're more likely the type of person to fall on vices and have any addictive behaviors. So spirit is wanting you to watch out for that if you did not already, if you're not already aware about that. And I have some different messages that come through for angels. There's no guidebook for angels. But when I look at that and when I had pulled it, I feel like there's something else I was gonna say earlier. I think partly, like a lot of people who chose this stack probably who are creatives, which I think is a lot of you. I think you get a lot of creative inspiration through spirit. Like I think if you see a lot of synchronicities, you'll just get like I think random sparks of inspiration and you'll be like, I don't even know where that idea came from, but I feel like I need to act upon that. I need to engage in that. And so then you'll express yourself creatively or artistically. And you'll feel like maybe the universe's energy is flowing through you. And you won't, I think a lot of times, if you really sit and think, you won't know, like, where did that come from? That energy, that inspiration. And so this is just an indication that I think a lot of you are very much connected to spirit in the universe and that you get and draw your inspiration through spirit. And you may not know why it's significant, but also I think actually, well, let me think about this. Because for some reason I have to talk a little bit more about that. I think a lot of you get significance through what seems like random occurrences to other people. So that's just another way that spirit is saying that you're very intuitive. And I think that relates to the 1930s because people had to rely not only on logic, but on their intuition for what to do next. A lot of people were in fight or flight, but I think, especially parents, had to think of ideas that came to mind for what to do for helping their family survive. And I wonder if just any of the occurrences, anything that relates to the Great Depression relates to your life. Again, like growing up in poverty or not having much. But it's interesting because even though there's a sadness within this spread, we do have the King of Swords here and the Chariot. So I think this talks about, at the end of the 30s is when the Depression ended, and people were then focused on rebuilding their lives. And before the 50s were a prosperous time for sure. So before it got to that, though, people still had to rebuild. So I think you're somebody who, no matter what you've gone through, you're always able to not give up and you pick yourself back up and you try to, um, I don't even want to say get stronger, but you just like try to stay strong. It's like you already are so strong, you don't need to gain any more strength. You just stay strong, you keep your chin up, and you keep trying to find ways to live your life in a way that's sustainable, is what I'm hearing. So a lot of you could be into sustainable living, or just in a way that you don't want to have a lifestyle where you lack a lot. You want to be, I don't see you being maximalist either, but I see you wanting to meet your basic necessities and wanting to make sure that you have enough for maybe future generations like your children or just in case of bad times. I see a lot of you being really good at saving actually. And yeah, just being really great at coming up with creative solutions. I want to go back to the angels card because there's something I was gonna say um as well, because I did say what I was thinking about earlier when I pulled the card, but also um with angels connecting to intuition to creativity. Maybe I already mentioned it. I'll just leave it. So let's go to the guidebook then. Is it the last card? The second to last card. Vesica Pisces. I will put on screen what it says here, but then I will read only what the card meaning is in reverse, so you can pause if you like for any of these parts. But in reversed, it means isolation, disconnected, infertile, abandonment, and something is missing. Ooh, yeah. So with the isolation, that brings me back to how a lot of you probably are very independent. I wonder if a lot of you just don't have many people in your life, maybe because you've had to grieve many losses, or maybe because you've had to cut people out of your life. But it seems like you've very much had to be an independent person, and you've had to be strong for yourself, and you've had to push through without much outside help or influence. So, spirit really does recognize your strength and your ability to persevere in the face of adversity and to be patient. I think a lot of you are probably very patient as well. You're able to see things through to the end, and you're able to wait if things aren't looking good. You're able to try and see the bigger picture, and I think a lot of you do have hope, sometimes even like unrealistic hope or just an unrealistic belief that things will turn out okay. But then obviously you're still here, so how unrealistic is it really? But it feels that you do have an ability to see the bigger picture, to be patient, to wait things out, and to see if things do get better. And if things don't, then you try your best to make the best of the situation. Okay, I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much, Winnie, for watching and listening to this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the video, you can like the video down below. You can comment down below if you resonate with this stack, and you can update your comment again in the future if there's any updates you have for us all. And then you can subscribe to my channel. It helps me out a lot. You can check out the other timeless pick a card reading videos located all throughout my channel. And you can check out my ASMR channel, Brittney's ASMR. That will be linked in the video description down below. Thank you so much again, Winnie, and take care. Hello, Tippy, and welcome to your part of the pick a card reading video. So as you can see here, we have 1940s and 1960s for you. I had to list two, and I'll explain why once I get into the cards, which I will do now. Also, there's two past life cards that I pulled here just because both of them came out at the same time, and very rarely do I use both, but I felt drawn to using both, so I'm like, okay, Spirit, I gotcha. So we have here the cards are Three of Pentacles upright, Five of Pentacles in reverse, Ace of Swords in reverse, Five of Swords upright, King of Pentacles upright, and Four of Cups upright. And then the oracle cards are Spouse, Persecution and Inquisition, and Shadow Self, Denial, Projecting, Shame. So first I'll explain how well, I said I was going to do this first for the other stack, stack one, but then I just like commingled everything. But I'll explain how the cards relate to these time periods, and then along the way I'll also say how they relate specifically to you, but you can also make references to what I'm talking about in the cards and see how it makes sense for your life and connect the pieces as well. So, the 1940s was the time of, first of all, I was getting a lot of like war themes. And so, Ace of Swords in reverse and then pulling the Five of Swords upright really made me think about war. And I think King of Pentacles can even be in reference to that too, like certain political powers being in charge, and a lot of there's a lot of war and a lot of tension between many different countries all over the world at that time. So yeah, that indicates that. Oh, I will say for some of you, maybe this is just kind of silly, but a lot of you probably don't get along well with your boss too. Now that I bring that up, I wonder if a lot of you don't have the same beliefs as the people who are above you in a workplace. Or maybe it's just where you live, like you don't agree with your political leader where you live, you don't like the political leader where you live. It seems like that's very likely as well. And that relates to both time periods. But for the 1940s, there was a lot of war going on. And in the mid 40s is when the World War II ended, I believe. And here we have Three of Pentacles upright. And to me, that indicated to me right away, like community coming together, a country coming together to build and rebuild. So that happened not only after World War II, but after the Great Depression in general. In the late 30s and the 1930s was the pick for Stack 1A. But from 1929 until the late 30s is when the Great Depression started happening and ended. And yeah, that's just when it happened. And during that time, obviously, a lot of people did not have much financially. People had very little food, water, and shelter, and their basic necessities weren't really met. During the 1940s, there was a lot more. done in terms of like there being factory workers and the industrial movement during that time. There's a lot of people who were able to find work again, and there are also people, who are able to be um deployed as soldiers overseas or just throughout the states. And it just seems like America was doing a lot in the 40s to rebuild and to come together as a community, as a nation, and to rely on one another and to improve one another's lives as well as everybody's own lives. And it seemed like everybody kind of was on a very similar page, comparatively speaking, I will say. Like, that doesn't mean everybody was absolutely in agreement with everything, but it seemed like a lot of people were pretty much a lot of times in agreement. So I wonder if you too are like that, where you try to find, like, I see you getting into arguments with people, but I see you also finding a community of people that you resonate with strongly. And I think probably you're the type of person who you mesh the best with people who share similar beliefs as you. Like, some people, I think you could be good at getting along with anybody at first, but then it's like when it comes to politics or when it comes to certain topics, you're like, yeah, I'm not going to back down from this. I think you're somebody who isn't afraid to stand up for what you believe in. So that's why during this time, during the 1940s, because people really were seeming to get along and be on the same page for things, it seems like, yeah, there's just more harmony amongst people and a lot more hope. And with the Five of Coins in reverse, that tells me that because of the financial hardships of the Great Depression, again, America and its people were making much more money, and we're also advancing technologically speaking and with innovation during that time. And I already talked about the Ace of Swords being in reverse and the Five of Swords upright, about how there's a lot of like fighting. Like, I was getting like atomic bomb imagery. And then the King of Coins, I was referencing to the leaders, but also it made me think too, but ooh, also a lot of soldiers. Specifically, there was a lot of, male soldiers who had to go and fight. So that could also, that King of Pentacles upright can be indicative of the people who fought for our country. Of course, it wasn't only men, but a lot of times we think about how there were a lot of men. And even with the spouse card here too, there's no guidebook for the past life cards. But for the spouse, it made me think of different things. So a lot of women had to join the workforce if they didn't already back at home and take on the jobs that men didn't have anymore, because a lot of men were sent overseas or sent elsewhere to protect or to fight as part of the US military. So for spouse, it's like one spouse is one place, one spouse is another place. And then for the Four of Cups upright, that makes me think that it's really interesting because I actually think this is what especially made me think more about the 1960s. But I think even though there's a lot of like hope for the future about what was going on, there's still a lot of depressing times. I mean, that's when the Holocaust was happening. So even though there was hope, there was still, I think, fear that things would return back to normal. And there was also a lot of fear, and this is what leads me more into persecution and inquisition. So, the Holocaust happened. So that relates to that. There were people who were being persecuted there. But it also reminds me of how the Cold War began in 1947. So there was a lot of anxiety around communism. There's a lot of targeting of people who could potentially be communists. People would get fired, people would get imprisoned. I imagine, people were getting unalived. And so it was also a time of like improvement, but also like being scared that everything would be stripped away from everybody. And then Shadow Self, 36, Denial, Projecting Shame. I'll read more of that in the guidebook um a little later, but it also makes me think that a lot of people were projecting. I think a lot of people like, America was in a really bad place, you know, in the 30s. And so I think because people wanted to be able to survive, people wanted to be able to thrive, then you had people who were also projecting their past issues onto other people. And for that, I'm thinking mainly of people who are in charge of companies and businesses, because even though it was a prosperous time, more so in America financially, like in terms of, or if you were to compare to the 1930s, people were getting back up on their feet and there was community coming together. The people at the top were, of course, the ones making the most. So then they, had such big profits and people in factories still weren't getting adequate pay and still weren't getting fair treatment or being provided safe work environments. And so all of this I think could relate to you. Let me talk about that because I think there's probably a lot of people in your life who have tried to take advantage of you. There's a lot of people in life who have tried to exert dominance and power over you. And I'm thinking mainly as this relates to home life. Could even be school life as well for some of you if you were like bullied or made fun of when you were younger. But there's a sense that people try taking advantage of you in some way or exerting power or dominance over you. But then, as time has gone on, you've been able to make this life for yourself and you've been able to really find connections with people who, like, I think a lot of you have big ties to chosen family. I think that's what's helped you a lot, where any hardships you've gone through, you can rely on chosen family. The connections you've made out, like, after, I'm thinking more specifically after high school, maybe even after college, but during college could be a good time too, where it's like, think about the people you have in your life who you're closest to, and a lot of you, I think, probably are feeling closest to your friends and your chosen family. And I think you've had a lot of people in your life who you've had to cut out, who you haven't gone along with, who are biological family or people who um are family friends. And I just think you've maybe gone through a lot of like breakups in your life. And I'm talking more so friendship and family breakups with that. So it feels like you've had to pave your own way and you've really had to fight to find people that you trust and that you can confide in. And it seems like you're the type of person who wants to be around people who you share similar beliefs with. Also, I think a lot of you can make your friends through work and career. And I see a lot of you being very successful through your own means, maybe the help of these chosen family people as well, but not really as much through people you knew when you were younger. And I see a lot of you could be very pessimistic as well, where it's like you do these things for yourself, but I think you're probably the type of person who doesn't really believe much in humanity. In terms of spouse and persecution and inquisition, um, I think some of you too maybe. Ooh, interesting. I think some of you want to break norms and you don't want to fit into the mold of societal expectations and gender norms. So let's say if you are a woman and you identify as a cis woman, let's say that you grew up in the South. In the South, people get married young and have kids young. Let's say you don't want to do that. Let's say you want to get married, but you don't want to have kids. People could very much even shun you for those kinds of things. So I think some of you have maybe even struggled with that in childhood too, where you grew up seeing that within your parents or the family dynamics, where maybe one gender did one thing, or there's just maybe a power imbalance. There just seems like something that you were around in childhood, something that you oftentimes witnessed, had a large impact on your way of thinking. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of you have religious trauma. I'm getting that as well, where a lot of you maybe, because the Three of Pentacles too, even actually, I don't know if they're in a church, but it makes me think that they're in a church whenever I see the traditional imagery of it. But they're like rebuilding or building a church. It makes me think about with community and all that. And so I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of you maybe have left the church, and now with the Four of Cups, a lot of you could be atheists too, or you just are more agnostic. I think a lot of you have had to undo a lot of traditional values that have maybe been placed upon you, and now with the King of Pentacles upright, you have the ability and the power to make your own choices and to make your own traditions as well, and to believe what you would like to believe. I talked a lot about the 1940s. I'll talk about the 1960s now too. Persecution and inquisition. Oh, what do I want to talk about first? I'm being pulled everywhere. So with the Five of Swords upright and the Ace of Swords in reverse, I believe the 1960s is when the Vietnam War was going on. There's a lot of protests that started going on in the 60s. A lot of people, when they think of the 60s, they think of late 1960s, but a lot of people also, I think that's the Cold War was still going on, so there's still a lot of tension there. And so it feels like with the 1960s, I chose that because there was still a lot of tension, there was war going on, but also I was getting a lot of ideas of with persecution and inquisition, it made me think about the people who protest and and the spouse could be, like all the people who are overseas as well fighting. Also, I think spouse, just because it was a very like looking back retrospectively, it was a very, like, romanticized time, the 60s, especially closer to 1969 with Woodstock and everything. But with persecution and inquisition, it makes me think about the protesters and how people were oh, I just thought about let me think. But it makes me think about people protesting with the Three of Pentacles too, and, like, the Five of Coins in reverse, like, not letting people take power over you, you taking power into your own hands, not King of Coins, uh, not engaging in specifically just groupthink, not sorry, I'm looking this up, not just blindly believing, like, what the government is saying. I think a lot of people at this point started having a lot of mistrust in the government as well, if they hadn't already. Yeah, okay, let me go to Stonewall. Yeah, Stonewall, 1969. I'm telling you, 1969 was the beginning of the Stonewall Uprising, and it stretched over 6 days between officers and protesters. So 1969, very, very, very powerful year. A lot of things were going on. Um, so it makes me think of social justice causes as well, where people were oh, and that's oh, MLK Jr. was also very prominent in the 60s. So a lot of social justice was going on, a lot of people protesting social issues so that they could gain more rights. And I seen this a lot of not backing down, a lot of and with the Four of Cups too, it makes me think, like, I'm not like, I'd rather die for what I believe in and die for being who I am than to blindly follow this path that people are laying out for me. So I think a lot of you relate to that as well, where you don't want to fit into this mold. You probably are very much doing things differently than the way your parents or your family did them or is currently doing things. And I think you would much rather live your life authentically than to live your life sheltered or not authentic to who you are. But I just see it being very beautiful, you and your friendship connections. I know there will probably be some people watching this like, I don't really have friends. It's like there's people out there for you. Like I see very strong friend bonds and friendship connections that you could have with people, and I see you being very involved in like activist causes as well. Well, let's go to 36 Shadow Self. I will not be reading everything it says in here, but you can pause these at any point. Pause the video at any point, I mean, and you can be able to get or you can just like read what's in here, but I'm just going to read the card meaning. It says denial, repressed, fragmented, triggers, shame, self-loathing, projecting, childhood wounds. Ooh, childhood wounds, overreacting, dark nights for the soul, and addictions. I was talking about was I talking about addictive qualities with this group or was it the other group? Because y'all could eat, I think it was the other group. So some of y'all might deal with that as well. But I think, yeah, a lot of you have repressed, or maybe now you're working through childhood traumas. I'm glad that it said that in here. I think a lot of you, and with shame, yeah, it feels like there's something about the way, or many things even, about the way you were raised that you just don't agree with, and it made you belittle your own self and not trust your own self, your own thoughts, your own intuition. And it made you just I just see you making yourself much smaller. I see there being like a dark cloud. And then once you're able to remove yourself from like that household or that community of people and find your own community of people, I see you being a lot happier and a lot. Also, I just see you being so brave too. I think a lot of you are brave for having gone through the circumstances you've gone through and making it out on the other side and being a good example of how to shift and change your life around to work best for you. But I will leave it at that. Thank you so much to B for watching and listening to this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the video, you can like the video down below. You can comment down below if you resonate with this stack at all, and you can update your comment in the future if you have any wait, did I ever say that? Sorry, I kind of zoned out. You can comment down below and you can update your commenting in the future if you have any updates for us all. You can subscribe to my channel. It helps me out a lot. You can check out the other timeless pick a card reading videos located all throughout my channel. And you can check out my ASMR channel, Brittney's ASMR. That will be linked in the video description down below. Thank you so much again, to be, and take care. Hello, 3C, and welcome to your part of the pick a card reading video. The cards pulled here are Queen of Wands upright, Queen of Pentacles upright, Death card upright, Seven of Cups upright, Nine of Cups in reverse, and King of Wands upright. And then for the Oracle cards, we have Wisdom and there's no guidebook for that, but there is for the other one. Wait, oh, where did my guidebook go? Oh, it's up here. Uh, but for the other card, the fire element card in reversed, I will read from the guidebook later for that. And it says 30, and it says warrior, passion, fearlessness. So 30 could be an important number for you all, but I think it's so cool how we started with the Queen of Wands and we also have the last card being the King of Wands. Love that. Love when there's a mirroring and such. But this was very obvious, like right away, like even more than the other groups, that this was going to be the 2000s. Because the 2000s were a time we have Death card. There were so many there's changes that are still constantly happening, but I was getting more of a Y2K vibe than like a current vibe or a 2010s vibe. But in the 2000s, even more, I don't know if I want to say more than 90s, but when I think of electronic? No, now my words are sounding weird to me. Electronic or electronical advancements, technological advancements. It feels like a lot of that was happening during the 2010s, and more people were using the internet than ever in the 2010s. When I think of that Queen of Wands and King of Wands, it makes me think that a lot of people were able to communicate with people in other countries while on their computer or on their phone. It makes me think that, I mean, the Queen of Pentacles too even makes me think about, it makes me think about, I was gonna say something else, but I want to think too about, post 9/11, there was a lot of patriotism that became prominent in America, and I think people express that more openly, and so people, I think the 2000s were a time of people being a lot more open about their political beliefs as well. I mean, I can't talk about other points in time. Well, other points in time people did, but I mean, I don't know. I feel like this also involves international affairs more, like people knowing more about international affairs because of journalism. I think people maybe, like when I think of the Queen of Pentacles, it makes me think about how at airports post 9/11 people were more secure. People, or not people, but airports were more secure, so they made it so it was harder to. Ooh, yeah, and the death card, 9/11. Okay, anyway, this isn't just about about that day. But there's a sense that people became a lot more patriotic, during that decade, and that people became a lot less quiet about their politics. But it sounds weird for me to say that because I feel like people are always like that. But I feel like just for some reason, I was really young, so I don't know. My parents didn't really talk about politics at home. I don't think. But it seems like, there was a oh my god, I'm sorry, I'm being taken in so many different directions, and it makes sense because we do have the 7 of Cups here, which is an upright, which means there's a lot of opportunities, a lot of jobs that opened up during the 2000s. There's a lot of potential for people to also work overseas, like, we have Queen of Wands, King of Wands energy, so it makes me think, um, people continue to start traveling more, internationally, and I believe we probably just got more involved with international affairs continuously during that time, as we continuously kind of do. Maybe not at this point. I don't know. Who knows what's going on politically right now? But the death card to me thinks that there's also the death of an era. Like, it was the 1900s, all the years it started with the one. We have the 1200s, 1500s, 1900s, all that, and then the 2000s. And it makes me think too that people thought when it turned to 2000 that we were all gonna die. So that's also, I think, what the death card is indicating. Um, it's interesting though because with all the and with wisdom, I wanna talk about that too because, again, with more for some reason, I wanna say with more knowledge comes power, but that's not originally what I was gonna say, but with more knowledge comes power, but with more knowledge also comes, no what's the saying? With more knowledge comes power, but also with more knowledge comes, like, the more you know, the less you know, and I feel like there was a lot of, in the 2000s, people knowing more about what was going on. I just feel like I gotta talk about internationally. Like, there's a big emphasis on national security and like nationalism, but also like internationally. So I feel like people started knowing more about what was going on in other countries because before, with less technology, it's like you can't actually see, like, maybe you hear what's going on, but now actually seeing more of what's going on TV, it makes people more fearful, it makes people more engaged, all this. It's interesting though, because the only card we have in reverse here is the Knight of Cups, and the Knight of Cups is like the dream come true card. There's a lot of benefits, a lot of advantages to, at least in America, you know, and many other countries too, I believe. Again, I grew up in America. I can only speak on growing up in my part of America and just America in general, but it seems like there's a lot of what people wanted to call prosperity. I mean, towards the end of the, what was it, 2008 was the economic recession and the market crash, but we still have the Queen of Coins here. Um, and this talks about like financial knowledge. Okay, oh wait, I want to get to this Nine of Cups in reverse. Because with that, it makes it seem like, you know, there's so many things going on. There's so many technological advancements. There's more knowledge that we have. There's more, depending on where you live, there's more power that your country may have, or there's more individual power too, like individuals realizing their rights or being able to tap into creative potential they wouldn't have had a decade prior just because of all the newness. But with all this newness, we have this shadow of the Knight of Cups in reverse where it's like everything isn't as it seems. Things may look good on the outside, but that doesn't mean that's good on the inside. That doesn't mean things are actually good. A lot of people, I think, are boasting about, like, the government's maybe boasting about how great the times are, but is it really that great? And then with the fire card, it made me immediately think about burnout, where I think that pairs nicely with the Knight of Cups in reverse because I think a lot of people have a lot more expectations placed upon them too. With the Queen of Pentacles, it makes me think how people have to work so much harder than I think ever before all at once. Like, especially people who are parents and people who are mothers. It's like having to do all these chores, run all these errands, provide for your family, work, but still do duties at home. There's just a lot more expectation and pressure placed upon people, especially starting during that time where people are expected to do more, people run themselves thin, and so then people, I think, get very burnt out, but even if you have no energy, you can't just completely give up, right? So it's like this never-ending cycle of new things keep happening and everybody has to keep up. I think all of this relates to you because I think, well, first of all, the Queen of Wands and the King of Wands, and I was talking about like a lot of like communication, especially internationally. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of y'all are very extroverted or you have many friends or different types of friend groups that you're a part of. It seems like I wouldn't be surprised too if you like get jobs through the friends you make. You're probably very good at like networking with people or just making friends. But it seems like you have, if not a large group of friends, then you're just very good at making many friends along the way in your life, and that helps get you far. It seems like you have a lot of charisma and people are really drawn to your energy and I think your assertiveness too. I think I'm seeing a hamster on a wheel. You're probably a very hard worker or you want to do a lot of things all at once. So I think there are certain people that find that admirable, especially employers. So I wouldn't be surprised if you work also, yeah, because the Queen of Pentacles is here. So you probably are a very hard worker and you probably try to get a lot done at once. I wouldn't be surprised if you're in some sort of leadership position within your friend groups or within your career or even like family, Queen of Wands, King of Wands, you could be a parent, or you could want to be a parent. You're working hard to become a parent one day. Or maybe you have to help take care of loved ones who can no longer work, are retired, or who have illness, you know, of some capacity. But it seems like you're working really, really hard. And it seems like you're the type of person who is on top of new trends. I think that's how this stack relates to you as well in this decade because I think you're on top of new trends. You're always wanting and willing to try new things. There's a lot of adventurous energy with you, but I think you balance that out pretty well with working hard. It's like work hard but play harder. I think is probably your motto where you work really hard but you play really hard. Pray. I don't really get that vibe, but and even Seven of Cups uprights, like, I think, you do a lot of things. I think you're very multi-talented, multifaceted. You can do many things, and you can do many things well, and you can do many things well all at once, specifically Everything Everywhere All at Once. I love that movie. But I think that is honestly my favorite movie of all time now. Anyway, And I am getting very Gen Z energy from this, which makes sense because I am getting my aloofness. It's all coming out. So I wouldn't be surprised if many Gen Z people are listening and watching to this. It's a very youthful energy, a willingness and wanting to explore. I think a lot of you could travel a lot or you want to travel a lot. Wouldn't be surprised if you move around quite a lot as well. And it just seems like you're exposed to a lot of new things and that you're excited. There's an excitement here about trying these new things, doing new things, being involved with people, talking with people from all over the world, making friends all over the world. But I think also with the Knight of Cups in reverse, I think even though you enjoy doing all these things, maybe you're an extroverted person, social person, the Knight of Cups in reverse and this burnt out card from fire, I think even with the wisdom, I think wisdom can burn us out too because we know more, so we want to advocate and be an activist for people more, or we want to learn more. I think a lot of you really want to continue to learn. So that can burn you out. And I think with new things always going on, new technology being invented and pushed out into the world, people feel like they need to catch up. So it's like the more you know, the harder it is to catch up or to keep up. So I think a lot of you get burnt out on all the even though I think on the ooh, and yeah, I was talking about on the outside. On the outside, it probably looks like you have it all together, but on the inside, I feel like you're sometimes questioning yourself if you know like what you're doing, or just think you get very fatigued and burnt out, but maybe you don't express that or you don't show that. So it's like you're a workhorse. You're always going or you're always on the move. You're always hanging out with people, but then when you're alone by yourself, it's like if people actually saw you, you look absolutely exhausted. But then you're really good at putting on a certain face when you're out in public. And I don't see you being fake at all, but I see you not wanting to show weakness is a good way to put it. And so if you're tired, if you're sad, you don't really show that. So I think a lot of that is more internal. So that probably relates to you. I would work on that if you can. Just don't get burnt out. Have more time for yourself, have alone time. Because I see you just being around so many different people and having to take care of so many people and so many things. And Spirit wants you to like take a breather, not have to be so overwhelmed by everything. And Spirit also, I think, wants to tell you that you don't need to be on top of every single trend. Like, I think you're like, if you, how am I supposed to express this? You might think that if you're not on top of things, like, things will take over you, I guess? It's like how we call us Gen Z people call people boomers or and, like, in a derogatory sense, but not really, just, like, kinda making fun, poking fun. And it's like, "Oh, you're such a boomer," because they don't understand. I think a lot of you fear that you will not understand something and that maybe people will make fun of you for it or that people will judge you in some way. So I don't know how that applies to your life, but that's part of the messaging I'm getting where with wisdom too, it's like you always want to keep up with the trends because you don't want to be pointed out as being somebody who isn't keeping up with everything everywhere all at once. You want to be educated and I think some of you, I wonder if in school or like your parents or your teachers or other students just called you dumb, which is really awful. So I wonder if some of you like overcompensate for that. So now you work really hard and maybe you learn about different things all the time so that you can like mitigate that. And you're like, no, I'm not dumb. I don't know why, but I feel like I have to like point that out. I think how does this have to do? I want to bring up the national security thing I was talking about. It's really interesting. I just think you're very protective of your home life. So I think you could really value and cherish your home. And I think you also value your connections with your family. I wouldn't be surprised too if you're I was getting this earlier too. If you're the mother of your friend group, if you like you could be a mother or a mother of your friend group. Um it just seems like you're very caring of other people, so that's why it can be hard to turn inward for yourself, I think, because you're focused so much on other people and all things external. We need to focus more on internal, Spirit is saying, like, it's okay, slow down and focus on yourself, not just other people. But I will go into the guidebook now. I will not be reading, well, I guess I will, it's not that much, so I'll read. It says 30 fire element. Fire is one of the four classical elements in critical energetic forces that sustains physical third dimensional life on our planet. Fire rules Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. Archangel Michael rules the fire element. Really? I wouldn't have gotten that. I thought he did for like I would have thought for air signs. Prometheus is a fire deity, and fire, choleric, is a masculine or yang element. Fire symbolically rules confidence, creativity, and initiative. And I think a lot of you are very, I wouldn't be surprised if you do have strong fire placement energies. That's uh with the Queen of Wands and King of Wands here upright, and then being the first and last cards. I think a lot of you are very confident people and you're very much go-getters. You're always wanting to do new things, try new things, and initiative. I wouldn't be surprised if you're the first to do new things, like in your friend group and whatnot. But yeah, card meaning. This is in reverse though. So it says jealousy, violence, destructive, irritable, rage, hate, explosive, and haughty. And this makes me think more about the internet because well, I this can apply to you just in general as well. But I think, oh yeah, if you get criticized, I think it's very easy for you to lash out. Um, there's that piece again, like I was just talking about if you get criticized or if people like make fun of you, it's like you get very upset. So I think a lot of you have to be careful about a lot of you aren't good at using your words wisely and thinking things through. I think you just act on impulse very easily. So spirit wants you to work on thinking through problems first before acting and also thinking about how you want to word things before you say them out loud because I think your words can be very harsh. Also, wouldn't be surprised if you yourself deal with a lot of hate just in general in life or if you were bullied as a child or just your coworkers don't get you, people in your community don't get you in some way. Um yeah, all that could relate or either or. I think I'll just leave it at that though, because I think you know what I'm talking about. What resonates will resonate. Yeah, I will leave it at that. Thank you so much, 3C, for watching and listening to this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the video, you can like the video down below. You can comment down below if you resonate with this stack, and you can update your comment again in the future if you have any updates for us all to read. You can subscribe to my channel. It helps me out a lot. And you can check out the other timeless pick a card reading videos located all throughout my channel. I have an ASMR channel, Brittney's ASMR, that will be linked in the video description down below. Thank you so much again, 3C, and take care.